just days before his State of the Union address, when the president will make the case for his agenda to the American public. So with that, let's bring in the former federal prosecutor David Weinstein tonight, along with Brandon Daniels, CEO of the company Exiger, which is an AI supply chain company, which, you know, is good to have both of you, always great guests on the show, to have a kind of a different perspective on this. I'll start with David digging into some of the legal side, and then, you know, Brandon, you can bring us your expertise on the business side and what this means or doesn't mean for supply chains and everything else. David, on the legal end, it didn't seem like this was like surprising to too many people. I saw odds going in that it would be like a 3 in 4 chance it would be ruled this way. But from what the justices actually said, whether it was Roberts or others, what stood out to you today?
Well, Connell, you're right. When we listened to the oral arguments, a lot of us felt that this is the way it was going to end. We didn't know whether it'd be 5-4 or 6-3, but what I take away from this opinion is that in what is the majority opinion, they say the president's powers are restricted. He cannot use IEEPA to enforce tariffs in this factual situation. The dissent, it tells him how he can enforce tariffs using other sections of the law and other ways to do it. And then finally, they gave us no solution as for what are we going to do with all the tariffs that have been collected. And that is just going to create a mountain of work in a variety of courts across the country, and lawsuits have already been filed even before this decision was filed. So we got an answer, and this court did restrict the powers of the president, but we don't have a solution.
That's exactly actually what I wanted to talk to you, Brandon, about. So let's do that now, and then I'll circle back to David on some of the legal side. On the telestrator, we have a list of companies seeking tariff refunds, and it's probably a lot larger than what you're about to see, and there it is. Where do you think they stand today? I was struck by the fact that the president said at the end of his briefing that great certainty has been brought back to the economy of the United States, but some of these companies might say, well, not so much. What do you say?
I think we are in a place where it's becoming more uncertain. I think we had actually started to level out in terms of the impacts of the tariffs, the areas of acute pressure that the tariffs would put on our economy. And we started to see actually inflation rates start to stabilize. So with the 122s getting implemented, which are the surcharges that are now implemented, we have a broad-based 10%. And then you're going to have a rapid 301 and 232 sort of ramp up here. And that's going to affect and change major industries that either are subject to economic abuse or national defense considerations. And you may also see countries that are doing business with, you know, national defense or security risks, or with countries or companies in countries that are known for abusing certain markets and certain market asymmetries. You may see those countries become subject to those 301s and 232s as well.
On a net basis, though, Brendan, are the tariff rates going to be lower, or is the effective tariff rate being paid going to decline, or is it just going to change?
Some of those stacked 232s and 301s, Connell, they way outstrip anything that had been imposed by the IEEPA tariffs. Like if you think about like flame retardants coming from China, you can have over a 300% tariff, right? So like when you start to look at the significance of the tariffs that you can put on either economic abuse or national security, they are meant to be punitive at a level that none of these IEEPA tariffs were.
That's interesting. And it brings us back to the legal side of this, David, about whether, first of all, you think any of this goes back in another way, shape, or form to the high court, okay? And then what stood out today, and a number of people have brought this up in our conversations on the show, is not necessarily what the economic impact will be. Brandon had a good analysis of it, but it seems somewhat uncertain. But that the court, thought to be friendly to this president, really pushed back on his executive power. I'll give you one of many examples that stood out to us, Justice Gorsuch, on something called the major questions doctrine. Let's put that up. We'll take that, and I'm sure you have other points, David. But highly resourceful members of the executive branch have strong incentives to exploit any doubt in Congress's past work to assume new powers for themselves. The major questions doctrine helps to prevent that kind of exploitation. Our founders understood that men are not angels, and we disregard that insight at our peril. when we allow the few or the one to aggrandize their power based on loose or uncertain authority. David Weinstein, pick up on all that.
So let's start at the end. I think to me what this signals is the court saying, look, we have three separate bodies. We need to balance each other out. We haven't been doing that in the past. You gave us an opportunity to do that. We didn't do it before. We're doing it now. So a messy decision and turmoil for the country, but now they finally stood their ground. And they said, we are going to act to impose that balance of power. As to whether or not something's going to bubble back up to them, all of the lawsuits below that are now trying to decide how are we going to give the money back? What are we going to do with the tariffs that have been collected? Are these multiple tariffs in violation? That's what's going to bubble back up to them. This issue, it's over. It's done with. They've decided it. And they've put a check finally in place on the executive branch and saying, we will check you if we need to.
Which is a big moment. I mean, no matter what you think of the tariffs or this case, that in and of itself is kind of a big political moment in the country, in the Trump presidency. But on the economic side of it, Brandon, to your point, the president's just digging in here with, and what you're telling us is interesting tonight, that in a way that could, and he said this in the briefing, and I wasn't sure if he was right or wrong about it, but you're saying you think he might be right, put even higher tariffs in place in some spots if he wants to.
I mean, they will 100% be higher tariffs in some areas than were previously put in place just through the IEEPA measures, because they will be backed by essentially investigations, right? These investigations will be into economic abuse. These will be in matters of national security. And so again, they're meant to be punitive, Connell. And so the big thing that our customers are now asking is, okay, how, and our customers are some of those brands that you had up on the screen, and they're the Fortune 500.
Right.
What they're asking is, okay, well, we had just plugged in all of these tariff rates. We had just gotten used to all of the importers sort of assessing tariffs on these new rates. We had just started to get to some semblance of order. Some of them had started to do strategic work like reshore these supply chains. Now everything's sort of thrown back up into 52 card pickup. I don't think this is beneficial for organizations that were just reacting to tariffs, and I don't think this matters to organizations that were taking a strategic view of tariffs.
Interesting. So last thing, I'll stay with you for this, Brandon, the idea that, so there was a line of thinking, I've talked about this throughout the show, that maybe, if this ruling went against the president, it could in a perverse way help the economy, because now you'd have lower tariff rates and that might help growth, or it might even help inflation. And you're telling us that the fear tonight is exactly the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the market rebound a little bit, Connell, as the tariff decision came out. So I don't think we're going to have a tremendous economic impact in either direction. I think these national security related tariffs and these economic abuse related tariffs can be used very, very effectively. They will force the reshoring of these major important industries to the United States anyway. And, you saw the ad valorem 10%, right? I mean, we're already back under a very similar tariff regime. So I think the big thing that we're left with at the end of the day, on tariffs, Connell, is we're left with the question of how you're going to pay back between 133 and 175 billion if you're going to. That's a big question, and it's one that industry is going to have to do a lot of work to solve, and we're going to be clogging the pipes in federal government to try to solve as well.
Right, in the courts, I think, and even the president acknowledged as much today. All right, we got to go, but a quick thought, David. Did you have any concern or thoughts about the president's personal comments about members of the Supreme Court, even justices he appointed today in the briefing room?
Very much so. Very much so. These people did their job. They were put in that position to do their job, and they decided the case based on the law and the facts. You can't attack them for doing that, and we've seen that happening throughout the judiciary. Judges need to be able to do the job that they're doing. They don't need to be called names. They need to be able to be doing their jobs and not being concerned and looking over their shoulder. And that's what this court did today. They did their jobs without concern of what might happen, but now let's see what happens, especially at that State of the Union address.
Tuesday night, we'll be there. David Weinstein, thank you as always. Brandon Daniels, terrific analysis on the economic side. Thank you as always. So this tariff ruling comes just days before the president does go before Congress.